Hello, everyone, and welcome. It is Monday, September 23rd. In week 4 of the class, we have reached the home stretch overall. The class lightens up a little bit on the compositional side because we don't have a week 5 for feedback or peer review or revisions. So here in week 4, it's all about taking the projects that you've worked on, the materials and the knowledge that you've gained over the class, and putting it all together into a format that you can show off and distribute. Take what you've learned and hopefully apply it beyond the class. We discuss the industry as a whole. We discuss how to find clients in this last week, dealing with budgets and getting started, and on like the more of the business side of the overall creative process. So our projects this week, you will be creating a video capture of your music and your sound effects working in the game. You're now here in week 4, or basically after week 3, you have completed your setup of your music and sound effects in the game. I've had a few messages from folks, but overall, if you have any continuing issues with working on Wise, please reach out and let me know. We want to use week 4 to be able to wrap everything up, troubleshoot any sort of issues, and make sure that you're smooth sailing through the rest of the week and finishing out the month. So you now have your music and sound effects working in both 2D platformer and Angry Bots, and those game applications are yours to distribute, to put up on Dropbox or Google Drive and share them around. You can host them on a website or send them off to future clients or employers. They are yours to show off, but there are some restrictions of mostly technical restrictions. The main one is the individual has to have a Mac in order to play the game. So in order to show it off to anybody and everybody, you are going to do a video capture, and there's lots of positive reasons, both of ease of use and technical reasons, to be able to have a video capture along with the game application to show the work that you've done both on the music and the sound design side. So it's all about week 4 is all about putting all of the material together, hopefully adding and building your portfolio or demo reel in the final months of the program here, and putting everything together in the best way to show it off to future clients and employers. So that's generally where our discussion will head in the second half. The archive will discuss the new assignments for this week. But for right now, before that, we want to do our last bit of peer review from week 3. You had a chiptune composition as your unique composition for that week, and we have a couple of submissions here. Let's see, let's move this out of the way, and we'll bring these up. So we have 3 submissions. Actually, let's do this so we can, it's not abbreviated there. We will drag all of those in there. There we go. So we have our 3 submissions here that we will take a listen to. For this chiptune composition, it was all about utilizing the restrictions of the original Nintendo. So in all of your previous compositions, there was a unique and format and layout of how the music was being composed and built. But there wasn't much restrictions on the production of the instruments, the number of tracks, or anything like that. But in week 3, when a lot of our discussion is about Wise and technology and how to get your music working in the game, and basically where all this technology is in 2019, your composition assignment throws you all the way back to the original Nintendo system, utilizing the same restrictions available at that time. So the main elements of that was you were restricted to the provided sound palette. The assignment provided a logic session with a couple of EXS24 sound banks that were on a number of tracks. And these sound banks were waveforms sampled from the original Nintendo and the Famicom system. So very recognizable, nostalgic kind of sounds overall. And so in order for the overall aesthetic and the sound of the composition to sound right, then we were provided or required to maintain this palette of sounds. Then there was a restriction on the number of tracks. The original Nintendo had 5 basic sound channels. 4 of them were waveforms, and the 5th one was a sample channel. So we were restricted to the 4 basic waveform channels, which were 2 pulse waves, a triangle wave, and a noise channel. So your composition had to have drums and it had to have a melody. So that equals out to maybe drums, bass, harmony, melody, kind of a traditional setup, or drums, bass, melody, counter melody, or drums, harmony, melody, counter melody. However you wanted to organize things, you were limited to 4 simultaneous voices. Now, you can have as many tracks as you want, as many instruments as you want, the main restriction being that only 4 voices can play at any one time. So the original Nintendo was restricted to these 4 voices, but could switch sounds almost note for note. So they were constantly switching to different instruments in the palette, and it gave the sort of feeling of lots more of instruments being utilized. So, 4 simultaneous voices. Now, the original Nintendo, all of those voices were monophonic. One restriction we didn't follow was you can use polyphony. You can use multiple voices per channel. So, and drums, kick, snare, and hi-hat count as one, or all your drums count as one voice. So, some restrictions we don't follow for this sort of updated version of the production. Can utilize chords. You can switch as often as you needed to. Need to have drums, need to have melody, and the melody needed to change instruments at some point. That was the main aspects. Compositionally, some of the recommendations, typically faster, more staccato writing works very well. The sounds are so kind of basic and sterile that if you sit on big block chords for too long, it can get kind of boring. So lots of movement, fast arpeggiators set to 16th notes or 32nds or 64ths, sweeping up and down in different patterns or very kind of typical sounds of that era. They would sweep through or arpeggiate a chord very quickly to give the sensation of polyphony. What else? Parallel thirds, parallel fifths, all kind of moving together, and creatively thinking about a particular project for inspiration. So one of the best aspects of the composition is it sort of gives this sort of nostalgic feel throughout. And so maybe at least inspiration-wise, you're referencing a particular game or style of game or approach. And so as we're listening here, we'll make comments on maybe what sort of game we feel like it is so that we can see if it matches up with the original composer's intentions. So think about what kind of game it inspires, overall approach, and other than that, it's a linear composition intended to be or bounced out as an MP3 file. It doesn't need to loop. It doesn't need to interact. It's not separated out into individual files. So this composition often sort of allows for great amount of or strong compositional aspects or great compositional development also. A lot of times, since the sounds are relatively basic, you're not going to be able to hide behind one patch where you hold a note and it arpeggiates and does all this magic stuff with layers of sounds that are all morphing and changing. And you're a lot of times I find that students get lost in the sea of presets and basically write the music to the preset as opposed to finding the preset that fits their intention of the music. And so since the sounds are quote unquote bad or basic, then it really leans into compositional, like it requires a strong composition. So strong melodic development, harmonic progression, rhythmic changes, all of that stuff leads to what often becomes stronger compositions overall. So yeah, I think that's most of the overview. We've got 3 submissions here. We'll take a listen to each one of these. Bring up the screenshot. Oops. See if we can make this fit. Bring this down here. Something like that. And for this one, I noticed it was bounced out as a .wav file. So it'd be best to update it as an MP3 file. That's the requirement of the assignment. What else? Everything looks good up here. Let's take a listen. It does seem quite low in volume. Got it all the way cranked up here. See where it goes. All right, it's definitely going to need some percussion. I hear a low bass line, a melodic line on top of that, and these big bass drum hits right here. No. Also, kind of the repetition of the phrasing. There we go. There's that big hit. So it needs a lot more. Well, not a lot more layers. You only have 4 simultaneous ones, but and I hear. Well, there's the hits. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's hard to tell which is which. These looks like the melodic phrase. Maybe the bass line here. Oh, I see. These are 2 lines going back and forth. This would just count as one voice because you're alternating back and forth. Every once in a while, it looks like it plays on top of each other, but I hear basically bass line and melody. It doesn't feel like there's much harmonic instrumentation and definitely needs drums. So it could be filled out a little bit more, have a little bit more action and movement throughout. Those are the main things we hear from that one. Oops. Let's go ahead and all right, whoops. Let's bring up the next one. Screenshot. There we go. And QuickTime. All right, looks like there's some good movement through here. Great melodic line so far. Very hummable and catchy. A good kind of bounce to it. Ba ba da ba ba bum. Oh, one more time. Nice. All right. Well, let's do this. All right. So each of the instrument layers are used very nicely. You've got the strong kind of bounce and rhythm all the way through. Sets a good pacing. Doesn't feel like I'm running around, but it feels like a kind of a strong kind of walking pace. Good because you kind of pace it along with whatever the game would be. Fun bass line, and then the kind of the play off between the two melodic lines, or melodic and kind of harmonic, kind of playing right along with it, or counter melody. It's not so much a counter melody; they're kind of alternating off, aren't they? Kind of supporting it. So, the main thing I think I would like to hear more of is the changes to the rhythm and the overall pattern. So where is it? I think here. Kind of changes the groove a little bit, but it's still staying at that same pace. One thing I might suggest is this composition feels like it's from the same part of one game. So as a demo, I would probably write more changes into it, where somebody listening to this, like I was, oops, looks like I've paused here for a second. If I was going to hire you to work on my game, and this was something you submitted saying, hey, I checked out your game, I thought it was really cool, and check out this piece, I think it would fit appropriately, and I'd be interested in working. Oh, connection lost. I would be interested in working on your next projects. And so I was listening to this. I would want to be able to pick out different parts of the music for different parts of the game. So I think this would work very well as a level loop, meaning that it's kind of consistent all the way across. It represents one place and one scene. But for a demo, a chiptune kind of demo where you're shopping around to folks for their particular type of game, think about, because you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different sections, and probably this fifth one similar to 1 or 2 or something like that. So, well, actually, might be 1, 3, and 5 are similar. Anyway, but so I could take and listening to the different sections, I would say, ooh, this one would work very good for my main menu, and this might be level 1, and okay, this is what stealth sounds like, and this is what danger sounds like, and although in this music it might not be all that dangerous, like this is what winning sounds like, and this is what losing sounds like. So start writing in more thematic changes in the short period of time. Then you could take that piece and somebody could break it apart and say, okay, make 3 minutes of this for a level loop and make this over here for this part of the game. So I think that would work very well as another place to take it as a demo, because what you're doing melodically and, like I said, the catchiness and the bounciness to it, I think works really well for the aesthetic of the game. All right. Let's try the next one. Needs a like a last chord in there too. That comes back around one more time. You finish the phrase, but one last chord. Bum, bump. Okay, nice work. And let's check out the third one here. Did that not work? All right, one more. This and that, and here we go. Cool. All right. Another cool approach. Let's kind of jump over here. And we got kind of big, kind of thicker instrumentation overall. So you got a strong melodic line here, playing through this first part, and then it changes kind of the, like I said, the density changes, the rhythmic aspect. So I like the changes throughout. They're kind of stronger story sections. Can kind of imagine it. I'm thinking this game makes me. The first thing I heard was it's definitely at night for some reason. Whether it's night racing or like kind of neon approach, or if it's like a Double Dragon night fighting game or something like that, where it's side scrolling, or even out in space, maybe like flying and shooting my lasers. So those kind of approaches and the different rhythmic intensities, the different changes of kind of the density of the instrumentation, or not even the density, but just like thicker chords and the kind of wideband choice of synths. So good changes in approach. The one thing I would watch out for is the front is kind of building it up. Feels more like song form. So the strongest parts, mainly the two of them, are when everything drops in here and then when everything changes here. So I wouldn't include all of this intro section. Even this part, just drop right here. Right? This is where the cool first groove comes in. You're going to want to in a demo, or when people are searching through SoundCloud, or like if you send people MP3 and they just gather a whole bunch of them together and listen to different folks' submissions, then they're just going to want to hear the coolest part, the very beginning. They're going to jump around. They're going to start at the beginning and kind of jump around a little bit. So you always want to hit them with in a demo. Like this is what I would consider more song form, where you have kind of lower instrumentation, drums and bass to start, and then synth comes on top, and then everything drops in a couple of bars after that. So start with this, then you have another good strong change when it kind of changes over here. Right here. And everything, the rhythm changes, the hi-hat gets faster, stronger pace to it. So those types of changes are really good to focus in on. Even when you kind of go back and bring everything back down, I would say even that's kind of song form. Just continue changing with cool ideas, and then end on a strong kind of outro. So I think it fits really well with the overall aesthetic. Compositionally, I think it works well with the changes in the rhythm and changes in the melody. So yeah, nice work overall. Gives us 3 different approaches. Everything I would maybe, and this kind of goes for all 3 of them, add more tracks with different instrumentation and switch through them at different times. Another approach that works well for all of these is to maintain the limitations at the beginning of the composition, but at some point kind of let the restrictions off, meaning kind of in the first half or first 2/3 or whatever, it is this type of composition, and then at some point it blossoms out into full instrumentation, no restrictions, any instruments that you want to use, any production tools or techniques that you need. It goes all the way basically to modern production. And the idea is to basically say that even with all the restrictions in the world, thrown back to the original Nintendo 4 solid waveforms, 4 simple waveforms, then I can still write very strong, catchy, melodic themes. And we heard a couple now. And but think about what happens if we don't have all of those restrictions, if we take it into what we would maybe consider the modern era of music production. Look what we can do. It's still the same composition, it's still the same melodic theme, but all of the restrictions are kind of lifted, and we can just go full tilt into whatever kind of production that we want. So different ways of thinking about this composition, different ways to take it and utilize it as a demo piece. Think about it as a demo piece. Think about how you would actually sell this or explain your approach to a composer. So we had 3 good submissions there. Definitely good stuff to check out. Hopefully it inspires other folks with their own composition. Here we are in week 4. We want to make sure that you get everything successfully wrapped up by the end of the month, so that you can go into the final project free and clear. Please reach out to me if you have any questions or concerns about any of the previous assignments, or Wise and getting your music and sound effects working in the game, or the final round of assignments. We're going to turn it over to the archive now that will discuss the new assignments for week 3. But we'll meet again on Wednesday. If you have any last questions or anything you want to discuss, we'll be there at an open session. Other than that, enjoyed having you in the class this month. Let me know if you have any sort of issues. We'll round it out clean and enjoy the rest of the month. All right. Thank you very much. Have a good rest of your day. All right. So we have our submissions there. Like I said, the focus of this week is, your final week is to take the information and the projects that you've worked on and put them in the best light to show them off beyond the class and beyond your time at Full Sail and be able to show the work off that you've done and completed, hopefully to future employers and future clients and whatnot. So as you have been progressing through all of your classes, you certainly should be gathering together as much of your classwork and materials and projects that you've been working on and put it together into a strong demo reel to show that off. And that includes these game projects. They are well and good as grades and as projects for a class, but their real intention is to give you a vehicle to show off your music and to show off your work and be able to demonstrate that off out there as you get started in the industry. So we are going to talk about the best way of showing off your music that is intended to play back in the game is to actually have somebody play the game. The best way of demonstrating your music for a game is to actually demo that game. So you have the game projects, you have the game applications, and you can distribute those as you wish. They are yours. They are free for you, free for educational purposes, free for demo purposes. The only thing is you just you would indicate that you did all of the music and sound, but you don't claim that you created the game. But they are for you to put on a website, put it in Dropbox, and send it around to future clients or future employers, and to show off your work. However, there are some limitations, mostly like technical limitations, with demonstrating your game. The first one is it's a Mac game, and so whoever wants to play the game needs to have a Mac computer in order to play it. The games can be put in or made as PC games, but that takes a lot of extra understanding and programming to convert the projects. I mean, it is possible, but mostly you have a Mac application. And so somebody has to have a Mac, and maybe whoever you're sending this off to has a computer, and they can check it out. They have to have a computer powerful enough to play the games. That isn't as much of an issue as it used to be, as people's computers have progressively gotten better over the years and have started with better computers. We really don't have much of an issue running these projects. So then you have another issue of very smart people on the internet won't probably just download some random application and run it on their computer. You would be very smart not to just download random zip files and open them up and play them on your computer. Now, of course, that's not the case with these applications, and they aren't. I mean, there's nothing wrong with them, but just a random link on a website, you're not going to get tons of people just saying, "Okay, sure, I'm just going to download this unknown application and run it." So you need to have some way of showing off your work. You need to have some way of people being able to see your music working in a game. You could just take like one of your main loop files and put it up on SoundCloud and say, "Hey, here's a loop that I wrote for a game, and I promise it works in the game." So the best way of showing off your music working in the game is actually having the game to show off. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a video capture of you playing the game with your music and sound effects working. So by this point in the month, you have composed the music for both of these projects, created all the sound effects. We had an opportunity for peer review, and you also got feedback for your submission. You have the opportunity to do any revisions or changes to that composition or those sound effects. Last week you used Wise and used an audio middleware tool to connect your music and your sound effects working in the game. You got it working in the game, you tested it out, you played the game, and you listened to your sound effects and your music, and more than likely found some issues with it. I mean, I guess you could knock it out of the park first time every single time, but most of the time you get it in the game and there's I don't know, 75, 80% of it's all right, but there's another 20% there that I need to tweak and to change. So you go back to your sounds and you tweak your sounds a little bit. You go back to your music and you mix your files and you bounce everything out again. You test it, put it back in the game, test it out. And that is a very constant kind of revision or iteration cycle where you compose something, you say, I think this is going to work. You put it in the game, go, man, that kind of works, but I need to do this. Then you go back and you fix it, you put it back in the game, you test it out, and you go around and around. So once you get everything set up in the game, then now you're ready to do this final video capture. It basically proves the process that you have created all the music and sound effects, put it in the game, tested it out, and have something to show for it. So you will be using QuickTime and a program called Loopback in order to capture the video on the screen or the game on the screen. All right, so let me talk about how you will set this up and how this will actually work. So actually I can just do this real quick. When you go on FSO, here's week 4. Here's your final game captures assignment. Notice that it is 0 weighted. That doesn't mean that you don't have to do it. It's just not turned in here. You are going to turn it down here in the final project delivery. So don't just ignore the assignment because it is 0 weighted. But it provides you with all the material. It says you will submit this YouTube link in a separate assignment on FSO. Final game capture. So you'll get a PDF here, and you'll get a PDF here. And the first one just gives you mostly just an overview and delivery instructions. Just kind of a real quick summary of how it all works and how to deliver everything here. But there's a separate PDF that goes slide by slide and goes into a lot more detail. So let me just take a look at this here. You will use QuickTime, which is already installed on your computer, and a program called Loopback in order to capture audio inside of your computer. Loopback is a free application. You can just go to the link here. Well, it's not a free application. It costs $99, but you don't need the $99 version. I don't know, unless you completely love the application and you want to support these people, but really you just need the free download for our purposes. The limitation with the free download is that it lasts for 15 minutes, and you only need to record for a minute or two. So if for some reason the 15 minutes runs out, then you just shut down the program and open it back up, and you got another 15 minutes. But after a while, it starts blasting white noise at you, so make sure if you hear that, that's what's going on there. So you just download the Loopback, and what it is it is a virtual audio cable application for your computer. Meaning, you are going to record the video using QuickTime. You've probably used QuickTime at some point. This is actually QuickTime down here for all my videos. QuickTime is just capture the video from your webcam, or actually in this instance it's going to capture the actual screen, but QuickTime doesn't allow you to do audio from inside of your computer. Actually, here's a better view of it. This is what it looks like when you open up and do the screen recording, and when you hit this down arrow, it doesn't allow you to record from inside of your own computer because of all sorts of nefarious copyright reasons. They don't want you recording everything that's ever been played through your entire computer, but for our purposes, it's your music. You want to record it, so you need to have a way of actually doing that. That's where Loopback comes in. And when you download Loopback and you run it, it looks like It looks like this. Here. And it says, hey, click here to create a new virtual device. And when you create a new virtual device, it's actually creating like an audio interface inside of your computer. Just like you take a cable and you go cable out of a guitar into an amp, or just a cable out of one thing into another. This takes a cable, a virtual cable, and goes out of your game into QuickTime. If I look at my audio MIDI setup now, it actually adds an extra interface to run everything through. And when you do that and you go back to QuickTime, oh my goodness. Hello, computer. There it goes. When you come back here and look in here, you should now have a loopback audio interface. Once you do all of that, the other thing you need to do is come in here and you need to tell it to actually go what application do you want to record. And you want it to point to 2D Platformer or Angry Bots, whichever one you're recording. Right here. And when you do that, it shows up here. You will be able to, I don't want to do this right now, but you want to be able to listen through your speakers. You uncheck the mute audio sources so that you can hear everything. And then you go run the game, and you should be able to meter it. Once you play the game, you should see some meters here inside of the screen recording, and you know at that point that it's working. When you get this set up, you might hear it doubled up, like it might monitor back twice. Depends on how you have your audio set up, but it either can be this, it could be could be monitoring through QuickTime, which could be this fader. It could be this setting, monitor through audio through whatever your output is. So double check those just to make sure. The other thing is, if you hear it doubled, it doesn't actually capture doubled. So you can just hit record anyway. You'll monitor it doubled, and then you'll listen. The video will be fine. So just a couple of pointers there. So you'll install Loopback. You'll set up for the screen recording. Like I said, you'll create a new virtual device. You'll select the game application that you want to run. You check the checkboxes. You open up QuickTime. You set up a new screen recording. I showed you this where you click the little arrow and you want to set up to Loopback so that you can record inside of QuickTime. At that point, you should see meters. And you can hit record. Depends on if you have like two screens set up. If you're just recording on your one screen, you can either click and drag just a portion of your screen if it's in a window, or you can just click and it will record the entire screen. Depends on how you have it set up. The only thing to watch out for is most of everybody's computers now have Retina displays, and that's like a really super high resolution. And if you do the entire full screen, it might just slow everything down trying to capture all that stuff. It just might be something to watch out for. I got a couple more slides on that. So the best thing to do is run it in a window and just kind of highlight over the window so that it only captures. You don't capture all of your messy desktop and all this extra stuff. You just capture exactly what you want. So it starts the screen capture. You can run like I said, you can run it in a window. If you click this little checkbox, it says it's in a window. If you unclick this checkbox, it says it's not in a window. More than likely, you've played the game up to this point. You probably know how best it is to run. You've probably already set all this stuff, if you even had to mess with it at all. So more than likely, it's just fine. But if things start acting screwy while trying to do the recording, some of these settings can help. So you hit record when you're ready to go, and you start recording and demonstrating the game. The actual content of the video, I leave that very much up to you. It's your demo video. It's what you want to show off and how you want to show it off. What I'm most concerned with, most focused on, is the process. The fact that you have the game, you have the music and sound effects working in the game. That's a huge portion of the project that you're now demonstrating. And you also have QuickTime, and you've got Loopback or something installed. I guess I should also point out, if you already have and you use something like Soundflower or Audio Hijack, those things are identical to Loopback, or at least in our function, for what we need. And so you can use those pieces of software, as long as it doesn't watermark it or do anything weird with the video or audio. If you already have it set up in a certain way, you can use that. But once you've captured this video, you show that you have all of the sound effects and music working in the game, and you can do a video capture. You have the game playing back. You're using QuickTime and something like Loopback to capture the audio. And so if later on you have a different project or different sounds, you want to redo this one, you can always just create new video captures to show the work that you've done. Demonstrate all the music and sound design. The other thing to point out is I do not count every single sound effect, meaning that I don't track that you have triggered every single sound effect in every piece of music, because I know that a lot of it, or some of it, is left up to chance. You can't always trigger every single music file because it's random. So you're going to get 3 intros, 3 main loops, and only 2 of the endings will play within about 2 minutes long. We suggest that the videos be around 1 minute to 2 minutes long, which is right here. Oops. Right. Oh, there it is. Video capture should be no longer than 2 minutes. So again, the content is up to you. How you demonstrate it is up to you. I would suggest a big one is don't play the game like you're trying to win the game. Don't just do the video capture just to show off how good you are at playing the game. It's about showing off all of the sounds. One common thing that I'll see especially with 2D platformer, is I'll hear the intro and then they'll start playing the game, and for a minute or two I'll just see them play the game, and they'll never die, or they'll just die once at the end and stop the video, and that means I only saw 1 intro and 1 ending. You created 4 other files and never showed anybody. So die a couple of times, jump off the edge, trigger some of those ending cues, try to trigger as many of the sound effects as possible, and just show it off in its best light overall. Then you stop the screen recording. You save the screen recording, name it your last name, your first name, GCP Week4 2D platformer, or Angry Bots. Do not name it last name, first name. Your name isn't last name, first name. You have a last name, you have a first name. Please, it happens every month. Somebody at some point names something last name, first name. So just watch out for that. And then please, please, please check your screen recording. Watch the video after it's done. This happens, most people do this, no problem, but for some reason, I will always, every month, I'll get a series of videos that either the audio is just missing, or they used the internal microphone on their computer. It played out of their computer speakers and then back into the internal microphone. And if it didn't feed back, then it sounds horrible. It just sounds really thin, and you hear them in the background, breathing and clicking on their keyboard, and it's really kind of weird. And you hear their dog barking in the background and their family running around or whatever it is. So just watch out for that. Double check the video. Make sure it has the correct content of it. It has the correct thing that you captured. The other thing is don't hit record and record it for 2 minutes the first time, because there's no telling if you got it right the first time. So just hit record for a few seconds, and then stop it and check the recording and make sure you're actually capturing the thing you think you're recording. So you don't have to do it over and over again and waste any time. A couple optional tips. Clear off the desktop. If you are capturing any aspect of the desktop, it's probably best to just make it as clear as possible. I know a lot of folks, we have audio directors and people in different game teams come and talk to our Full Sail student, or come talk to our students, and they'll say often, if we see screenshots or things and it just looks like you have a messy desktop and you posted up a video and it just looks like things are all over the place, it's not probably going to help your cause overall, because a lot of people don't want to work with that. So you can either do a full screen or a high resolution recording. You can do a low resolution recording. If more than likely the video capture is just going to work just fine. Every once in a while, depending on people's computers and whatever they're running or how they have it set up, this might start making your computer chug a little bit, because you got to play the game and do a video capture at the same time. If that is the case, then as long as the audio doesn't stutter or doesn't drop out, if the video kind of gets slow or choppy, that's fine. For the purposes of the video, for the grade and for the assignment, that's fine. Obviously, you want to make as a high quality video as possible. I wouldn't really even consider just focusing on the fact that it's an assignment. Create a proper and a demo video that you can use beyond the class. So if need be, try shrinking down the resolution of the game. Maybe even try shrinking down the resolution of your monitor and your screen. That might help create smoother videos overall. Once you have done the video for both Angry Bots and 2D Platformer, you're going to post them up on YouTube. Just to put them up there, you can put it just so that I can view it. You don't have to make it completely public, but don't make it private. Make sure that you post it up and you can share the link and have everybody reference it. So the assignment of the video capture is really getting everything set up. Once it's working, then it's just playing the game and just showing off how your music and sound effects sound in the game. All right, so that is your final video capture. And to then show it off, or then to kind of deliver the final version of everything back here on FSO. The kind of big assignment for this week is your final project delivery. And this is going to be basically, it's a 10-question test, but it's not like a test that you study for because you have all the answers. It's just really a summary of your composition. So it's broken down into two halves. 5 of the questions are for 2D Platformer, 5 of the questions for Angry Bots. They're very similar to each other. The first one is 2D Platformer video capture. Provide the YouTube link to your 2D Platformer game capture video. So you just did the video capture, you uploaded it to YouTube, now post the YouTube link here. Make sure that it works. You can always go into incognito mode to check links. That's how I do a lot of my stuff with YouTube and Google, since I have like a personal login for YouTube and Google, but whenever I want to do any Full Sail stuff, you just go into incognito mode and it forgets who you are, and then you can log in as whatever you want. So if you just double check all the links that you're going to send me, make sure that they work. You can use incognito mode to do that, or send them to somebody else, and then that's how I will be able to check it also. So give me a YouTube link. This is actually quite important. A missing YouTube link or a missing audio track in a video renders the submission ungradable. If I can't hear it, if I can't hear your music and your sound effects, or the video doesn't work, or the link doesn't work, I can't grade the rest of the assignment. So make sure the video is there and working. Then you'll send me a screenshot of your DAW session. You will, this is the 2D platformer instrumentation. List the instruments that you used in the intros, main loop, and ending cues. Name any synths or sample library sources for all the tracks. So you will tell me what instruments you used. Tell me in the intros, the main loops, and the endings, which synths, which drums. Don't just tell me I used a piano and I used a banjo and an organ and a synthesizer. Tell me which presets, which sample libraries, which synthesizers you used, which presets you used, so that the idea is if somebody else had to recreate this session, they knew what instruments. They could go load up those, assuming that they had the same instrumentation that you did. Somebody could kind of recreate all of this stuff if necessary. Next, 2D platformer transitions. You will take screenshots of your intros, your main loops, and your endings, and then line them up in a particular way. You are going to take your intro 1 and connect it to main loop 2, and then connect it to ending 3. And then take intro 2 and connect it to main loop 3, and then go to ending 1. And then take intro 3 and go to main loop 1, and go to ending 2. I guess I could just read it up here. Basically, it's taking all of your tracks and rearranging them into different orders, taking a screenshot of it, and then answering a few questions, like describe what you listen to each track. How does the music transition from one cue to the next? Describe what you hear. Does the intensity of the music build with the intro cue? Are the same instruments heard from the intros through the main loops and the endings? Are there any hiccups or pops as the music shifts from one music cue to the next? So these are just basic overview. How well did it work? Did it sound as you expected? Just kind of give me insight into the final product. Then you will create a screenshot of your final mix. Give me a peak level and an RMS level. Use the level meter plugin found in Logic, just so I can get an overview of your levels. AngryBots section is very much very similar. AngryBots video capture. Provide the YouTube link for that. Give me a screenshot of your AngryBots session. And list the instrumentation used in your ambient, buzzer action, mech action, and spider action cues. Then you'll take your 4 files, line them all up together, ambient, buzzer action, mech action, spider action, and then basically comment the same way. How did it work? Listen to your cues playing back together. Describe what you hear. How well did the cues play back? Are there any noticeable issues? Do the cues start and end at the same time? Are there any rhythms that clash? Do the melodies or harmonies clash? Just to get an overview of how well the main portion of the composition worked. Give me a summary with a screenshot of your AngryBots mix. So really, it's just kind of like a post-mortem overview, summary, summation of how well everything worked in the final projects. So that is the direction we are headed in this last week. Please let me know if you have any questions. I'm going to stick around here for a few minutes if you have any questions. But again, this is the last week. Let me know if you are having any challenges or anything that you need to discuss in the final part of the week. But we have one more class on Thursday. We can listen to or discuss any or anything that you need, or take a look at your final video. But other than that, let's end it there. Thank you very much, and I'll see you again on Thursday.